Welcome to the Gowns and Crowns podcast,
where we talk all things pageantry. Amanda, tell them what our topic is today.
Today we are going to discuss platforms and community service, which are two very important categories and aspects of pageantry.
I love a pageant that offers community service and that offers a platform because I think it gives a contestant the opportunity to connect with the judges on a personal level with something that's important to them. That's not to say that pageants that don't offer that as a category isn't important. I grew up in a very small southern town, so in our school and church, I was very much taught the importance of community service, especially from my parents. And then when I was older, my mom had a health issue, which gave me the desire to want to promote a platform of something that was important to me personally. Mm-hmm. So I know that that is something that the girls really, really, really like.
Absolutely. And the thing with platforms is there might be a cause that doesn't really have anyone behind it yet, but the moment that you put a pageant contestant with a crown and a banner on, people want to know what is this that she's talking about? What is it that she's drawing attention to? So there might be some really good causes out there who need a pageant contestant to catapult them into the community and grow it, which is great. Pageants can help do that.
Yeah, so let's address the platform first. So
yes.
What makes a good platform?
I feel like when you have a platform that you have either lived or someone close to you has lived, that makes it that much more genuine and authentic. And I feel like puts that fire in your gut to really put your time and your energy and your effort into it.
Yeah, 100%. And if it's something that has happened to you personally, then obviously you're going to be able to talk about it. But also be sure that it's a subject matter that you're comfortable talking about. I know some things that are very, as you always say, near and dear to someone's heart aren't always the easiest things for people to talk about.
Yes.
But to be honest with you, when I interview girls and girls tell me something that is, I don't want to say sad or emotional, or you can tell they're really invested in it. Those make the best platforms. Doesn't matter if you get a little choked up when you talk about it, or
it makes it that much more real.
Yeah, well, it makes it real to us.
Yes.
So I think it's really important that you can put some emotion behind talking about it, because here's the thing. If you win a state or national title and you're lucky enough to use your platform, you're going to have to talk about that for a year.
365 days.
Over and over and over. So you want it to be something that every day you get the opportunity to talk about it, you're excited about it. The other thing for me when I hear young women talk about their platforms, and this is talking about what makes a good platform, you have to be able to condense it down into about a 20-second description of what it is. I've had girls come in to interview. The interview's 3 minutes, and one judge will go, I see that your platform is blah, blah, blah. Well, then they start spouting statistics and telling what it is and telling why it's important. Well, the next thing...
And there's your only thing that you talked about, which is okay. I mean, if you talked about it, because clearly you're passionate and you can talk about it, but if it's only 3 minutes... you may want to get a few other things in there too. Now, some other interviews are a little bit longer.
Like there's one that's 10 minutes.
So. Yes, that would be where it's okay to expand a little bit. There again, this goes back to interview, which I think we'll touch on at another point. But you don't want to talk, ramble,
right.
And a lot of times they will have you open with, like a 30-second or a minute-long introduction or have a closing. And that's where you can touch on some things that you really want them to know about your platform or that you didn't get to say in the interview if it's in a closing.
I'm going to give you a little tip on how to do this, okay? So I was a journalism major, and everybody knows in journalism when you're telling a story, it's who, what, when, where, why, and then they added how. So it's actually 6 little things. If you can write one sentence answering all 6 of those, that's 20 seconds.
There we go. Oh, okay.
So the minute the judges ask you about your platform is who, that's you.
Right.
What is your platform? Why is it important to you? Where? Is it something that you can only do locally? Can you take it statewide? Can you take it Nationwide. So that's who,
National,
what, when,
international.
where, why, and how. How do you plan
To promote it, right.
Yeah. Are you going to go to Instagram? Are you going to go to Facebook? Are you going to do TikToks? Is it something where you can actually appear in person to talk about, or are you going to give out brochures? I know we had a client that started the My Little Library in her town, and every time she talked about it, she would go everywhere collecting books.
Yes.
So she actually solicited people to donate books. She would go and pick them up, and to this day, she's still putting books in that My Little Library, which I think is a great platform. But again, it has to be something that you can talk about in 20 seconds.
And something that you do before you compete in the pageant.
Well,
That's very important.
Yeah.
Make sure that you at least do something with your platform before you compete. That you don't want to go into the interview saying, well, if I win, this will be my platform. It's okay if you don't know a whole lot about your platform yet. The pageants can help you get there
Facilitate
with
it.
that. Yes, and get more involved with it. So even if it's just something that you've researched and you haven't necessarily done hands-on work yet, that even I would be okay with if I were judging. Okay, she's done her research. There's a purpose behind why she wants to do this. She's already got some things in mind, or she's done at least one appearance. You don't want to go into the interview and say, well, I haven't done anything with it yet.
I was actually in an interview. I was not the one who said it, but there was a girl, and they asked about her platform, and she said, "This is my platform." And one of the judge there was one judge. He was the one drilling her on it, and he said, "Well, what are you going to do with it?" And she goes, "Well, I'm planning to do this, this, and this." And he goes, "Well, how are you going to execute that?" "Well, I'm not really sure because I had." And he flat out said, "Why haven't you already done this?" He said, "You don't need this title to facilitate that." He said, "This is just going to help you take it to another level."
Right.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, well, there's that." But that right there, he loved her platform. He was just
Right.
disappointed she had done nothing with
With
it
it.
because he definitely saw the value of it. Another thing that I think is important when picking a platform, and I know this is kind of that gray area, it has to be relevant.
Yes.
It has to be relevant to a lot of people. I know that everybody has something personal, but if you pick something so obscure that people can't relate to it, you're going to talk to 5 judges and they're going to be like, "Oh, that's your platform? Okay, well, that's interesting. What's your favorite color?" So it needs to be something that when you talk about it, I think you can get a lot of people on board with it. And of course, we want to bring awareness to a lot of issues, but if you're bringing an awareness to an issue that only affects 1% of the population,
It's not really gonna. I don't know if it would go very far.
Right. You just want something that that's a great word. You want mileage. You want to be able to take this all the way. I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, when I was the radio marketing director, which you know because you worked at the radio station with us, we were very involved with community service. We had FCC regulations we had to meet every year. So we had X amount of community service that we had to do. During this process, my mom developed breast cancer and was a 30-year breast cancer survivor. But not only did our radio do a bunch of different organizations that we promoted through our radio stations, I took on breast cancer awareness as my own personal platform out of respect and honor for my mom. And I still do things for that when I can. I'll go and speak if I'm asked to go and speak. And my mom was a great tribute to someone who beat the odds.
Right.
And then my mom was shy by nature, but she was very big about, get your mammogram, it's mammograms. And, she always loved to wear pink and wear the pink ribbons and do all of that to bring awareness to it. So I know how that became important to me, but I also know that everybody has a mother, a sister, a girlfriend, a daughter, or a wife that could have been affected. That's something you can get mileage out of because it's affected a lot of people.
Big population.
And there's one thing that you've always said, it's not just girls with breast cancer.
And I remember, so going back to also to, and I'll get back to my point here, but at the beginning of this podcast, you talked about how sometimes the platforms can bring tears or vulnerability. I had open heart surgery back in 2019. And when I was younger, I never wanted to talk about my heart challenge. My mom and my dad like to call it a challenge instead of a problem. But I never wanted to talk about that because I was very insecure about it. And it wasn't until I was in the Mrs. division that I finally felt comfortable making that my thing. I talked about heart health when I was younger, but it wasn't until I became a little bit more vulnerable, and that really helped me live that platform in conjunction with breast cancer awareness, because my granddaddy was a breast cancer survivor. So I was able to help at the same time that we did the breast cancer walks to the radio station, help promote awareness that, hey, this doesn't affect just women, it affects men too. That was great to be able to promote that, because there might be somebody out there who needed to hear that and wanted to hear that.
You were also taking, with the breast cancer, you were taking a platform that everybody knows about, but you were putting a new spin on it, because most people don't realize that men can have breast cancer also.
Yes.
The other point that I wanted to make about, and I'm going to use Amanda as an example, and you actually brought it up before, so I didn't have to. So Amanda actually was born with aortic stenosis.
Yep.
Okay, which is something that she lived with her entire life. I met Amanda when she was 14. Amanda goes every year to Duke University. She's part of a lifelong study there where they will study her body for every year and see where her body is at each stage of her life to follow aortic stenosis. So I watched Amanda compete in pageants from 14 all the way up to Mrs. And Amanda would talk about any community service or any organization except anything that had to do with her heart condition, which she came with a built-in platform. But I always remember when we were getting ready for Mrs. Galaxy, which she won, by the way. When we were getting ready for Mrs. Galaxy, Amanda said, "I'm going to take on the American Heart Association and women's heart health as my platform." And I said, "Really?" We were standing in the studio and I said, "Really?" I said, "What changed? You have never ever wanted to talk about this." And she said, "Well, when I was younger, talking about it made it real." And she said, "Now I'm at an age where I know it's real and I have accepted it. And I know that at some point in my life, I will have open heart surgery, and I know the risk involved with that." But here she is today, a testament of someone who not only had a platform, had the worst thing happen, have open heart surgery and survive it, but she still is a part of the American Heart Association. You did the Go Red for Women.
Go Red for Women. I was one of their ambassadors for a year.
And she was actually a spokesperson who went around and not only talked about her condition, but she championed the American Heart Association, which I know I talk about Miss America and America's Volunteer and Miss USA a lot, but I think Miss America took on the American Heart Association as their platform.
The number one killer of women. A lot of people don't know that.
So, but anyway, that just is to give you a personal opportunity that Amanda could have been talking about this through her entire pageant career. She just chose not to because it was too sensitive of a subject. But then the day that she felt like she could, it was the right platform at the right time.
Yes.
So we've touched on platform, what'll make a good one, kind of some steps to be able to talk about it effectively in interview. But let's talk about community service just overall. I personally love the Little Miss South Carolina program, which everybody knows. I just think fundamentally that is one of the best pageants in our state.
It is.
And why I say fundamentally is they start teaching girls from 2 years old and now go all the way up to 26 years old. And like you said earlier, we're going to talk about interview and we're going to talk about Little Miss kind of in depth at that point, because interview's 50% at that pageant. So it's always been 50%. They're 54 years old, but interview has always been 50%. And when people say pageants aren't relevant or what makes that pageant relevant, I'm like, well, it's relevant because interview drives the pageant. So interview is 50%, but their pageant is built on community service.
They teach at a very young age. You're never too young to start making a difference and getting involved.
And the girls have to talk about community service
in their interview.
And they also have a title that they give, which is called South Carolina's Outstanding Teen. And that's based on your grades solely, your interview and well, it used to be a book, but now they've modernized. They have to send in a video, and they have to talk about their community service that they've done for a year. And then it's a really sought after title, because when girls win one of the Little Miss South Carolina program titles, they can't compete in any other pageant for a year, other than their high school or college or elementary pageant, because that's a school activity, not a pageant. But they will spend the entire year as a court traveling our state doing community service.
I love that.
Yeah, so I think, when people say, why are pageants relevant? We now live in a culture, there's a study that shows that teenagers do community service the least amount of time now than ever before. They donate the least amount of times, pageant girls not included. That isn't because this generation is lazy. It is because this generation now is inundated with 24/7 cheer and 24/7 dance, or boys don't just play football where they have free time. They play football, baseball, soccer.
Yes.
It's this generation of young people, their days are just filled with all of these extracurricular activities.
Right.
And so there's really not a whole lot of time for community service, but I also don't think schools are teaching the value of it either. I know when I was in school, I was in the beta club. You had to complete X amount of hours
Yes.
to be in
To be a part of
to be in the beta club. That always taught me the value of doing community service, which stuck with me through my older years. But even though these kids are so busy, they need to be taught the importance of helping your community and helping your fellow man, or they're going to
Absolutely.
become adults that are kind of not apathetic.
It teaches life lessons.
Yes, exactly.
And it could lead to a job for them one day, which I think a lot of people don't realize as well. And speaking of being so busy and wrapped up with everything, that was one of the things that I was going to bring up is you might think, oh my gosh, I'm too busy. I can't fit this community service in. But if you are part of a team or an organization, or even going to church every Sunday, that's where you can really bring in people to help you. You know, say to your coach, hey, I really want to make a difference for our community food pantry. The next practice, can my teammates bring in a canned good? I mean, that it can be that easy. And you think, well, that's not a lot. Can I really put that on my application? Absolutely. Because you brought those people together and you helped make a difference.
I also think that there are easy things. Now, as an adult, if you're busy, you can always make a donation.
Yes.
Listen, $5, $10
Goes a long
means a
way.
lot to an organization, especially like a animal shelter that may not get state funding.
Right.
And they rely solely on donations. But there's always around it. But I guess when we talk about, platform is something that is important to you. Community service is just something we should be
Doing anyway.
holding hands to do together, because at the end of
Yes.
the day, what is most important is helping our communities. And unless we teach this young generation that, yes, you're a straight A student and you're so super involved, but it's still important to do community service, we're going to end up with a generation of adults that aren't going to participate in that.
Right.
That aren't going to participate in that. I know the one thing about the pageant industry is I always get people say all the time, I just don't like how pageant girls do this community service and then they have to tell everybody about it. I'm like, well, poo-poo on you. That's what we do.
That's how we
spread
the word about how you get people involved.
Yes, it amazes me. I think when you do community service, you shouldn't take a picture of it and no one should know about it. Well, that isn't the point of the word awareness. And the fact that you're talking to me about it means it had an impact on you, because
You wouldn't have said anything.
you wouldn't have said
otherwise.
anything if it had not had an impact on you. And it's not that that's a negative thing. I get what they're saying. But in the pageant industry, we're giving girls a crown and a banner, which you always say is a microphone, to talk about the things that are important to you.
Absolutely. And something else that I just thought about, this has probably been maybe 10 years ago, a girl that I was working with for her high school pageant, she went to go volunteer at a nearby assisted living home. And when she showed up, they said, you don't look like a troublemaker. What are you here for? She said, I'm here because I want to help. Like, community service is not a punishment. It's a reward.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I used to get excited about doing community service.
Yeah.
I'll ask girls, I ask two questions in interview a lot of times. One of them, I'll ask them, why is community service important? I see you've done it, but tell me why it's important. And then the other one I like to ask them is, if you were to win Miss So-and-so, and I asked you to talk to a group of your peers who had never done interview, how would you encourage them to do how would you encourage them to do community service knowing they're not going to be paid for it? And then I love some of the answers that these girls give, because at their core, they genuinely understand, oh, I'm not just doing community service because I want to win this pageant. They're doing it because they would do it whether they did a pageant
Or
or
not.
not.
And it doesn't cost anything, but just a little bit of your time most of the time. And the reward that you get, I think, is priceless.
And community service is also like the platform. A lot of people are just like, oh, I just don't, it just, I was like, there's 1,000 things out there you could do for community service. Nobody's saying you have to do something you don't want to do. Just
Right.
pick the community services that are important to you.
Go try them all out, and that might help you find your platform.
Yeah, like all these teenage superstar athletes who may not want to do community service, go volunteer for a little league team that needs help. It
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean you have to stand on a corner and ask for money
Right.
for donations. You can turn your life passion into something that actually helps
Absolutely.
everybody else. So that wraps up our podcast today on community service and a platform. I hope we've given you a little bit of insight as to why it's important and how you should approach doing it if you go to a pageant that has a platform or community service. All right.
Sounds good to me.
So for today, this is Cyrus.
And Amanda.
And remember, it is a world of beauty and,
And a universe of possibilities.